I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for coming into our group. You are one of my cherished resources as a director of a school, as a parent. I feel like anytime I have any situation happening, I always rely on you because just your knowledge and the mindful way that you treat your patients.
Thank
So
you.
before we begin in the questions and answers that some of the people in our group have asked, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background?
Of course, yeah. For those of you that don't know me yet, I am a licensed clinical psychologist and a board-certified dance movement therapist, which means that I use a mind-body approach, looking at the whole system and how our experiences, our challenges, our illnesses are experienced in the body and through movement. So what better way than to support individuals by looking at the whole system? And I work in private practice with children right now virtually, but all through California, working collaboratively with parents and other pair providers, as well as before COVID going into schools. And I also provide bedside therapy to children with cancer and special needs at children's hospitals in Los Angeles. And just been enjoying so many of these talks with you, Susan, as I know that there are so many questions out there, and I can't think of, again, a better way than just to have an open forum to ask questions and think, as you've heard me say, it's not prescriptive or diagnostic because there are so many variables at play here, but really to think about this mindset and think about, hey, I'm wondering and being curious to learn more about my child.
Absolutely. And that's why I really wanted to kind of bring you on so that you can answer some of these questions from a child psychologist view, because it's great to get all sorts of advice from parents, but I think it's also really important to touch base with a professional. So I just really appreciate you coming on, and let's just dive deep into it. So I did a post yesterday and I said, does anybody have any questions for Dr. Lori? And some great questions came up. And so I'm just going to read the first one. Sorry, the setup is so
I know, I feel that too.
So the first question is, what is the best way to deal with constant negotiations? And this parent said that she gives her 3-year-old 2 options for most everything, yet she still counters with something else. Maybe she'll be a great lawyer one day, which I don't doubt. And is using her age appropriate. So what do you think about that negotiation part of giving children options and then they kind of go beyond?
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind that are fun to explore when we are thinking about those options. Sometimes we have been taught use options, right? Give your child choices, have them have this shared control, making sure that those options are non-negotiable. So we're deciphering between, it's not about you can brush your teeth or not brush your teeth. And this might seem like a given, but I just have to put it out there because sometimes they're like, oh, I gave them a choice, brush your teeth or not brush your teeth. We want to make sure it's actually 2 things they have to do. You can brush your teeth or get your pajamas on. Which do you want to do first? So either way, they have to get it done. They're just choosing when and how. So you're thinking about the timing of the choice versus the actual item that you're offering. Another thing that you want to explore is how you're using your voice and your facial affect, your emotional expression and your gestures. So oftentimes when a child gives a third answer, you give them 2, they give you a third, or they repeat the last thing you say, try playing with a range of how you say it. So do you, what's an example? There's so many. Do you want to read 5 pages or 4? You know, or something big like that. So silly. But, you know, or do you want to read like 1 book, or do you want to read 2 books? And really expanding out. And when you can grab that intensity and that experience of it, they might lean in. So those are just some simple things to play with. And then my favorite part about negotiation is that, and I can't pull it up right now, But the Latin word, I had to look this up. I was like wanting to find out more about negotiation. Because oftentimes with this peaceful parenting, we think about negotiation and we think, oh, our children are so brilliant and witty and we want to honor their ideas and we want to have this collaborative discussion, and it's so beautiful. It comes from such a beautiful intention. However, children are negotiating the non-negotiables. They're negotiating about they don't want to go somewhere that we're going to go, or they don't want to go to bed, right? Or they don't want to eat all their vegetables, those kind of things. And so there's times when negotiation is really important, where you can talk about, hey, are we going to have pizza? Are we going to have rice tonight? But when it's not a negotiable, when it's something that you're telling them, this is where we want to look at underneath those subtitles. What are they really talking about? And the Latin word of negotiation means something like, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but it means something like not wasting time, like not taking up too much time. It's like void of play. So in those moments where it's not an opportunity for play and conversation, we really want to let them know when we're being clear. So making sure we're removing words like please. Please is such a beautiful, please and thank you is really kind, and we want to use those things to evoke etiquette. But when it's talking about put your seatbelt on, we don't have to say please put your seatbelt on. It's not open for discussion. We're just saying put your seatbelt on, or let's put our seatbelt on. So really deciphering between what is negotiable and what is a non-negotiable. And I'll have to write that quote back into for you, the actual definition of it, because it's really fun to look at.
Fantastic. Something that you touched base on that, you know, when I am training teachers is we're actresses. You know, we have to be actors when talking to children, because you want to spark their interest. You know, and by, do you want to read 20 pages or 4 huge pages, you know, kind of put that little spin of your actor, you know, into it. Yeah. So thank you very much. I think that's
and just it emphasizes, you know, I love the idea of, like, you know, bringing in the vibrance to your interactions, and also that it brings meaning. It sparks a connection. It brings a relationship to what we're doing. And sometimes we're so monotonous when we're giving these choices, it seems like a demand, and the child's like, no, I don't like any of those. I'm going to choose my own. And then there's so much more. So let's keep exploring it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kyle just said it works really well for the youngers, but how do we get that to, you know, I have a 15-year-old and I can't say, oh, let's read 20 pages. So how can you kind of alter that negotiation for, let's say, preteens or teenagers?
Great question. So there are a couple of things that make me think right away is that what is predictable? What's set up for the child? Where have you actually sat down with them? Not when it's due, not when it's time to actually do the pages or to do the cleaning up of the room or whatever it is, but before that, and actually set up like, hey, here's some parameters in our household. These are the agreements that have to get done. When do you want to do them? Mom says, you know, my thing is like, I would rather get the bed made and get everything done before I come downstairs for breakfast. That to me seems really efficient, and it's my way of like not having to go back up. But does that work for you? You'd be saying this to your preteen or your teen. And you might say, could you try it my way? And then show me that I'm wrong. Can you do it your way and show me that you'll still get it done? So like, have you had these conversations? And it's a learning process. Sometimes we expect these things just to be like automatic, like what's wrong with them? Why aren't they doing it? But it just might mean it's not meaningful. They don't understand what it's for. And typically, if this is happening in your teen years and adolescence and up, this has been happening since they were 3.
Right.
They didn't have a meaningful understanding of the relationship about cleaning up or reading a book. They didn't find that joy, that meaningfulness. So we want to go back. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means, hey, let's circle back and find the meaning to what I'm asking you to do. Right. And maybe ultimately it's because you're saying it makes me happy. I know it makes no sense to you, to the child, to get this task done, but my body will feel more comfortable. We live in a system. I do things for you. I need you to do this with me. And you have that relationship. So really thinking about what's the setup. Have you talked about it beforehand? Then when you're in it too, it's just asking them, again, these are things to play with. How do they respond? Do you need to write it down for them if they use more visuals versus lecturing and repeating yourself? If you find that you're repeating yourself over and over again, that might be actually more difficult, where as soon as you're repeating it, they have to start over on what they were already doing. So really paying attention to, can I say it once? If it's not working, can I give it to them in another visual form, an auditory form? Can I connect back to them?
Yeah.
Am I modeling it for them? So these are some areas we want to look at.
Yeah. Thank you. But
yeah,
I'm keeping this in my job child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so just let's pivot a little bit.
Totally.
To and that question was for Christine. So I hope, Christine, that was a great answer for you. My next question came from Shane. And his question was, what tools can you use to manage a child that was diagnosed with ADHD? And I know that it's kind of like there's such a wide range in that category, but what are some a few little things to support a child dealing with that?
Absolutely. So one of the things is, you mentioned about getting professional support. And what I want to emphasize first and foremost is just that professional support doesn't mean that your child's bad. It doesn't mean that it has to be like endless money that's just gone and you have to do this for the rest of your life. I'd really love all of us to consider it's an opportunity to learn a little bit more and dive a little deeper about your individual child, and know that you can fade out. So like when I work with individuals, I'm supporting the whole family and the providers around them, so that I can become a check-in place, that it doesn't have to be forever. But just to know that you have those individual tools of understanding what is ADHD or ADD, so attention deficit or hyper attention deficit. What does that mean for my child? The way we used to look at it was about the inability to attend. And we actually know that there's so much more. It actually could be a flooding of information where they have so much attention on so many things that it's hard to discern which to focus on. So it's an executive functioning process of like what comes first, second, third. It might be about that they're actually great at attending in certain areas and certain skills in terms of how their body's set up and the input they receive in their body. So I say all this because it's such a loaded question that means we need to look at what the definition is. What does it really mean about my child? Also, what happens with ADHD and ADD is that you also have a compound or comorbid disorders or just differences where you have anxiety, you have depression often, especially as the child gets older. You also can have like mood instability and overreactions, and again, just a lot of areas of emotions that can come up that can impact where your nervous system is in fight, flight, or freeze all day, but you're being told you need to read this book or you need to do this task. That can be really difficult. So the child doesn't attend, right? Or they kind of find a way to like have an adaptive response to shift. So it's really important to understand your individual child, looking at what's going on with their eyes, not only from your pediatrician, but really getting their eyes checked from an ophthalmologist that looks at the sensory system and the integration of learning. Really looking at auditory processing. How are they taking in information? Are you slowing down when you're delivering the tasks? So get the information. Really, it will just be so helpful, and then you'll have it and you can, circle back to it and really find that tailored approach, so that it's not just a name of like, oh, you can't attend, like you can't focus. So when I look at children that have attention, I'm looking at you can be a great attention, someone that can attend. Let's find out how that works for you. When the question asks what are some tips or like skills to look at, we want to look at, are you giving visuals? Are you chunking things together, making smaller tasks, not giving them like a whole list, like go upstairs, get your shoes, get your backpack, put your water bottle in, get your notebook and your pencil and come down? Too much. It doesn't mean they can't end up doing that. It just means let's start with, hey, I just need you to go upstairs and then read this paper. They go upstairs, they open the paper and it says, grab your book, your pencil, and your shoes, or whatever it is. So are you breaking down the steps? And then I love always emphasizing the body. So what physical activity can that child do before they have to attend? Get them moving, Get them getting that proprioceptive input, really feeling their body before they attend. If you start to see them divert off, movement break, get them moving again and come back. Fighting with them to focus, focus, focus is not going to help them focus. We want them to be in a state of relaxation and feeling rested. And so we want to get that energy up, moving, and then they come back to recovery and ready to focus.
That's a really great tip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, so for the next one, I love this question. I think this is so important. What is the best way to boost your child's confidence in the preteen years? And the example that was given, this is from Jason. I actually was in the Navy with Jason. So my son loves playing basketball and soccer, but he always talks about how bad he is and he doesn't want the ball. So how can and I feel like this is pretty common with kids, you know, how can you boost their confidence, especially during sports, you know, and school, everything?
Yeah. So, you know, I kind of chuckle with it. I tend to go to the humor of it, of like, how's that serving you? So I may, again, I say this very gently, know your child, know your relationship. We don't want to undermine or be dismissive or, you know, just belittling. But my first response is like, I want to be playful with that child and be like, hey, who you calling bad at sports? You're talking about my son, you know, and I want to like mess around a little bit and be like, oh, you're the worst. Like, and like he catches it and like, oh, you couldn't, you know, like kind of play with it a little bit, draw it out a little bit and talk about how like awful we are and like, oh, I can't get this. And, you know, have like your worst game ever where you're just like throwing the ball backwards and like, you're just having fun with it. Just seeing that it's just a game. It's so silly. And then just like how ridiculous that is. Like, are you really inefficient, or is it just that you are, you know, you're just kind of not as interested in this moment to be like fully all the stress and expectation of if I'm good, I have to be really good. Yeah. So just playing with this idea of like, is there room to be awful and horrible and silly on that basketball court versus all like, I've got to be a professional, you know, Michael Jordan.
Yeah. And so
that would be something I would want to explore.
So right before the game, what are some things that could be said to the child? Yeah. Because you don't want to say good job or you know, so what would be some things to say?
So important is that growth mindset, Carol Dweck's work and so many others of just looking at the effort. So after the games, before the games, really I love setting intentions with a child. Like before you go in, yoga nidras is a practice where you're connecting to your body, or doing there's so many free YouTube clips where you can listen in and like get motivated before a game, really getting yourself centered, and then talking to your child about like, set one intention for the game. Maybe the child says, I want to catch the ball one time, I want to pass it, I want to play for 5 minutes, or I want to at least play, I want to cheer my teammates on, I want to listen to my coach. Pick something. Pick one thing that they are going to say, this is my intention for the game. Then if that is all that happens during that game, they've got it. If they say something like, I want to make a basket, like I want to score, that's a huge, you know, that's a great wish and a hope, and it very possible, but it's also something that might not happen. So then we would want to break it down for them so that basically the intention they set, we want it to work. So if they say, I want to score, you want to say, okay, how are you going to make that happen? So then the child or she would have to say, I need to get open. I need to, you know, really warm up well so that my coach sees that I'm ready and I'm like driven to be there. You know, like what are the steps they're going to take? So thinking about those intentions and then breaking it down. How can they do it? When they get off the court, it's really focusing on what did they do? Not the good jobs, but I saw you hustling out there. I saw you looking at your coach when he was talking or she's talking. You know, really thinking about what did you see? I think, as you can imagine, this child and parent can practice those skills, rehearsal beforehand. Like, are you practicing off the court, on the court? Really, and for any sport, right? And so really giving that opportunity to practice. The other part is like the psychological, emotional piece, as I mentioned from the beginning, is really diving into like, what does it mean? Is it the truth of it that you're a terrible player? Is this working for you? Is it serving you? Is it your way of easing that stress level? And so maybe they don't want to hear you say, no, you're amazing.
Right.
They actually are like, you know what, I don't want to reach that goal. I just want to be, good enough. So really, we want to look at like what's the intention behind the statement the child's making, and then we can just give that just right response where we're just saying, yeah, you're feeling like you have work to do.
I
If that's
love
something you're interested in.
Yeah.
And maybe they say no, and maybe they say, yeah, I do want to work harder.
Well, I mean, something that I just had an aha moment with this. So what I'm hearing is you set your intention with the child. Let's say this game, I want to pass the ball 3 times. And then after the intention is set, okay, this is what we're going to do. Then like dissect it, saying, okay, how are we going to do this? Where's the best angle to pass the ball?
Mm-hmm.
And then once the game starts and in those breaks, when you have those moments, point out what the child did instead of good job, cheering on that way, rather cheer on what they've done by just saying what they did. I saw that you passed the ball.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
I saw you were really close in passing the ball. Remember when we talked about stepping this way, or however you want to have the conversation with your child. But I really that just gave me a good little thing to remember. I really like that.
And parents will often say, well, it just comes out, like the good jobs and the compliments come out, or the criticisms come out, and that's going to happen. We don't have to be mad at ourselves. We can give ourselves permission to be human, and we were raised this way with lots of good jobs that we come from that. It comes out of your mouth. So just elaborate on it when you can. When you remember, you just say, good job, I really saw you what are the facts? Because good job is not a fact. We don't know. Is it really a good job to who? Maybe to you, but to someone else it wasn't. Maybe to the child it was not a good job. So then you're not being truthful. They're like, you're saying good job, but I don't feel like it was good. So there's an incongruence here, and I don't feel comfortable. Right. That's not what we want. So instead, when we say, good job, I saw you running, okay, the child can go, okay, yeah, that's true. I was running. Okay, so my parent thinks good job means running. Great.
Right.
Or whatever it means. So they can just expand on it. In adolescents especially, they don't want us to toy with their intellect. They are brilliant little guys and girls, and they know things, and they can outsmart us, and they understand. They've been around. They know when they look good. They know when they don't look good. They know when they're skilled and not skilled. So they don't want you to pretend. They want authenticity and emotional connection and novelty, newness, and relationships. So we want to just kind of connect to like, what did they want? What do you want to hear?
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's great. A question was asked while we were talking. Now that's with preteens, boosting that confidence. Now, how can we kind of boost somebody a little younger? Let's say 6, 4, 7, kind of like in the younger age range.
Yeah, it really starts the same way with that effort, really removing the compliments and the judgments and just focusing on what you see. Really acknowledging we talk about it as like you're the NASCAR announcer. Hey, I saw you running and you're going up the hill and you went so fast, your arms were moving and moving and moving. Look how you went. You're just saying what you see. Kids love that. Or you are, the librarian whispering and going, oh, wow, I saw you. Yeah. So you really see them. You're connecting about that. That's going to give that intrinsic motivation. While it's nice for little ones and older ones to do things for others, this is different. We don't want their motivation to do a sport or an arts craft or even math, right? We don't want them to do it because they're trying to prove something to us. Yes? Great if it's also a check that we're proud of them. As a parent, you want them to be doing well and loving what they're learning. But if they're intrinsically motivated to read and pick up a book, intrinsically motivated to get outside and practice their sport, then they're hooked, and that you will also be proud of them. But they will come from themselves, and they won't drop off. You won't see that dip of like, I'm the worst and I don't want to do this anymore. You won't see the flood of like, I have to be the best and then I'm going to not be successful in life. You see the internal motivation.
I love
that. That's what we want to do, even when they're little.
So basically the same, just pointing out what they did, not praising them, but just say, and also that actor, remember the actor role, wow, you colored that paper green. Like, would that be a good example?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And getting outside and practicing, making it a part of your daily life. You
Yeah.
know, when things become a routine, especially for the little ones, like exposing them to different activities, exposing them to trying it and practicing it. When they say, I don't want to go, I don't want to do that, really seeing it as they're not saying, I don't like that activity. They're saying, this is new, I'm not familiar with it. So
Right.
you just slow down and you focus on getting shoes on, you focus on getting in the car, you focus on the
Yeah.
song you're going to listen to, and now you're here on the field and you just
Yeah.
start to explore, this is a bat, this is a ball, how are we going to play it? And just allow them to explore and
Yeah.
really be a part of this experience so that they do find that joy
Right.
in the
Right.
activities.
I love that. Thank you.
Great.
All right. So the next question, I know you're probably busy, so I just want to kind of get through.
Okay.
So many people ask questions.
I love that.
Um, I had a hard time reading this, but this this mom said, "How may I control my anger towards my kids, and how to deal with sibling rivalry from elder to younger?"
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, two
I think
parts.
that's kind of like a two-part question.
Yeah.
First, how can we control our anger? I know that for me, I'm always saying self-love. So I'm really interested in seeing what you say when we as parents get over, over emotional or triggered by our children.
Yeah. So it was being reinforced in a book I recently read again, that parenting, Dr. Siegel does Parenting from the Inside Out.
Mm-hmm.
This book was something like the book you wish your parents read.
Yeah.
Um, there's lots of resources out there. Ultimately, in the field of psychology, we look at what's happening within your system that gets activated when you're with your child. And there are different ages and different experiences of your children. Some parents get really activated with a newborn. Some parents get really activated with a teenager. Some is like the 3-year-old, right? There's different relationships that come up. So one of the things that you might decide to explore,
Mm-hmm.
the person asking these questions, is really thinking about what was that like for you in your home when you were that age?
Mm.
The age you're working with right now, the age you are seeing every day, the mannerisms, the behaviors, the physical look of that age. What was it like for you? And make sure you're being supported when you're looking at this question. So make sure you're in a safe space when you're looking at this question, where maybe you're in home and you have a loved one with you that you could connect with, or maybe you're in your own therapeutic session or your therapy group, and really having a space to write and talk about what was that like for you, and really getting to repair that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes when we are being triggered is because there's some experiences that we weren't allowed to do when we were a child. So if you had a sibling and you were never allowed to fight, and now you're watching your 2 children argue and fight, you might be realizing, like, this was not acceptable. Or I was yelled at by my older brother or sister and no one was there for me. And how am I supposed to be there for my child when I don't know how to be there for me, because I never was taught that. I don't know how to do that. And you might think I should know this because I'm an adult. But if you weren't experiencing that as a child and now you're seeing the same situation unfold, it's hard to access tools. You weren't
Right.
there. So really getting that support to understand, what is this about? And if there's any piece of it that's yours, and there always is, I'm a parent as well, there's always our own work to
Yeah.
do. The great news is you can look at it, you can explore it, you can say, what did I need as a child? What would have been like my golden ticket if someone had just been like, here, let me help you with this.
Yes.
And then you might explore that with your own child. You might be like, you know what, when I was a child, my parents would have done this, this, and this. And I felt so bad when I fought with my sibling. Or because we fought, we have never talked since. Or because we fought, now we're really close. And you can explain to them so that they can have a healing or healthier relationship. And you're setting them up.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I
Not
think
easy, but yeah,
yeah, and I think
important.
what really is important to kind of take away, at least for myself, is really, again, mindfully dissecting the emotion within ourselves. Um, I loved how you said alone, because I mean, just kind of going back into your past traumas can be, very emotional. So just sitting with yourself and kind of reviewing, like, why you feel triggered, just like, mindful parenting, just mindfully going back and then bringing it to light.
Yeah, and making sure you have that support system.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways, I've said this in different ways before, is to tap into not only just like the thoughts that come up and the thinking part, but where
Yeah.
in your body is this experience? Is it something that you hear, like you hear the children arguing and then you're getting rageful in response,
Right.
like your response is to fight, right? Because you're trying to protect yourself and them. Is it something you're visually seeing? You're seeing fists being thrown, or you're seeing mess and kids grabbing things? Like, is it something you're visually seeing? Is it a tactile experience where you feel like your arms are crawling, like you're just like it's like boiling inside you, your kettle's boiling? So really
Mm-hmm.
accessing what part of this sensory experience, then you can, it's I typically say it's easier to shift a sensation,
Mm-hmm.
change the temperature of your body, close
Mm-hmm.
your eyes, divert your eyes, focus inwards on something else, listen to something. That might be a go-to first start while you're
Yeah.
exploring what this is, versus trying to tell yourself calm down. It's not so
Right.
easy to calm down when we don't want
Yeah.
to calm down.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so the next question is, how do you help a child who struggles with constant negativity? For an example, we were spending a few hours at the park. I can see him laughing and having a wonderful time, but then when he leaves immediately, he remembers one thing that went wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and will say that he didn't have a great time. He's frustrated. All of those emotions come up. This question's from Christina.
So smart, that little one.
Yeah, that's
So
my first thought too.
Um,
What a
so
smart kid.
smart because gosh, like if you have to leave anyway, it wasn't worth it anyway. We might as
Right.
well just throw that place away. I have to go away. I'm not going to like long and love it. That would be so sad. So, I jokingly say this, children are so brilliant, and what a great, powerful tool this child has chosen to do. There's some feelings and sadness about leaving this beautiful park and experience and not knowing when we can come back. And so it's easier to find that congruency. So if I have to leave and I feel bad, then I'm going to say something bad about it, and it's going to solidify the experience, and I'm going to feel that I feel like the truth of it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay now, because they're the same. So one thing I would want to explore is play. Again, play with the idea. It doesn't mean do this, because I don't know your child, I don't know your
Yeah.
family, but play with the idea of like, you're so smart. You have to leave the park, and that's disappointing. And then you found something disappointing to talk about. You've made it easier to leave. You don't have, imagine if you said all the good things, you'd want to stay here
Mm-hmm.
forever. You just want to stay
Right.
here all day because it's so amazing. But
Yeah.
let's just choose the yucky stuff. So that's something to play with. It's a brilliant adaptive skill your child's used, and we want them to know that you can also leave the park and miss it, and that feeling can also be a beautiful feeling. It means you really loved it. It means good things happened.
Yeah.
So I would be exploring, and I'm sure this is coming up in other places for this child, that it's hard to end things. It's hard
Yeah.
when things are, saying goodbye. So we want
Yeah.
to make a positive experience. So some simple strategies: before they're leaving the park, have them choose one more thing to do before they leave, and then have them say goodbye. I don't know how old this child is, but especially if they're little. Bye, slide. I loved going down you. Bye, swings. I'm going to master jumping off you next time. Bye, sandcastle. I hope you have fun with Charlie over there building some more. Like, have them address each thing they did and all the things they did. Like, go through it. And if they don't verbally say it, you can say it to them. Oh, I saw you swing over there, and I saw you go over there, and kind of retelling the story. So
Yeah.
that's one strategy you could use. And then also the negative bias that talks about research showing that anytime you say one negative, you say 5 positive. So it's very similar. You're just talking about other 5 things that you experienced there. But I do hear in this little guy's conversation that we don't want to negate that something they want, that it would feel better if something went wrong. So rather than saying to them, no, it wasn't bad, you had a great time, you would say, oh yeah, that happened, and I saw some other things too. So allow that child to have both those feelings.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so the next question is, my kids started getting worked up around lunchtime and dinner time. So it sounds like around food.
Yeah.
The 4-year-old gets really moody. How can I support? So maybe moods around food.
Moods around food.
Or
Yeah.
even naps. I mean, if
Yeah.
I'm not sure, this is from Luke. I'm not sure if Luke's child still naps, but that can also be because that's also around, you know, a nap time. But he specifically said lunch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Susan, you're onto something there about timing. So
Hmm.
it could be a beautiful exploration of timing of like, do we have to eat a little earlier or a little later?
Hmm.
Really thinking about those schedules. Sometimes it's just a management executive functioning thing where you have to like pull out the day and put it down on paper and go, oh, wow, there's actually a longer gap here. And he's
Mm.
maybe really hungry or she's really hungry. Or, you know, maybe we need to do a quicker transition of food. So
Yeah.
really playing with that. That's something you want to look at. Doesn't mean you have to change it, but just definitely look at timing, timing, timing. Also thinking about collaboration. How is your child getting involved in that meal prep? Are they aware of what's going to be involved in the meal prep? I would be asking about their nervous system and their sensory system. Are they able to sit down and eat? Are they a
Hmm.
child that moves around, so they need some more core stability? Are they having any sensitivity in their mouth, which might show up in terms of mouth breathing? It might show up in terms of not wanting to brush their teeth. So definitely want to look at, you know, professionals such as occupational therapists or therapists that look at the mind body and really thinking about what's going on in that child's body, that the
Right.
meal time or the sitting time may be of a challenge, especially taking in food. But if you're feeling like that's not the case, just finding ways to get your child involved in the interaction. So it's not that they have to be called and pulled to the table and sit down and eat, but are they sitting at the table with you? Are they using tongs to get their food and transition? Are they helping you cook? Really helping them have a meaningful relationship with meals.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you do one more?
I think so. I don't even know what time it is. Are we
It's
okay?
11:40.
Yes, we're good.
Okay, so here's one more.
Okay.
We're just gonna have to keep doing these because there's so many great questions that
There
come.
are. I'm so admiring this group's questions. Really
Yeah.
thoughtful.
Okay, so the last one, my 6-year-old also, my it's kind of typed a little funny. My 6-year-old would cry and be angry for a while when the fun has stopped. So,
Hmm.
like a beach day or a park day.
Yeah,
How can we support a child that has to end a play
yeah,
and
absolutely.
move on to the next?
Yeah. Again, brilliant kid, smart kid, right? Like, at least you know what this child loves and that they really love what they love. You know, that's very different than a child that's, you know, doesn't really show interest in something.
Hmm.
So just celebrate that for a moment is the
Yeah.
first part. And then really thinking about how you prepared the child to know it ends before you even get there. Hey, sweetie, every time we do something really amazing, we have such a great time, but at the end, it ends with like this big upset. What do you
Yeah.
want to do this time before we leave? Oh, but I don't want to leave. Oh, yeah, yeah, we haven't even gotten there. We have the whole day there. But eventually we have to go home and eat and get ready for bed and see daddy or whatever, you know, whatever's happening.
Hmm.
How do you want to say goodbye to the place? Have a conversation with your child. They might have an amazing way of like, I wish you would let me, you
Hmm.
know, have the final whatever. Or I would like mommy if you could pick me up and we could run to the car, you know, whatever it is. So make a plan before you end with them, again, having them choose that last activity, find a way to close it up, using words like that, find a way to finish what you're doing, and
Hmm.
then we're all done, rather than saying, okay, 5 minutes and then we're leaving. That's
Yeah.
so vague. Like, what do you mean? What's 5 minutes? It seemed like a second. What
Right.
is the physical activity? Find a way to finish up your sandcastle. Are you going to put one more shell on, or do you need to find two shells? How is it going to end? I wonder how you're going to finish this activity. Do you and your friend want to run 5 times? What's the final thing? If you can join the child in that final activity, that's a beautiful
Mhm.
way to now be in their world. So you're joining that last run and then you're running off. Um, Preparing all the stuff that you can so you're lessening the load, so it's not like now we're leaving plus I have to give you 15 explanations of like demands of like pick your shoes up, grab this, you lost this, grab this, take your clothes off, like lessen the expectations of that
Yeah.
transition. Yeah.
I think one of the best advices you have given me personally was to join in before taking like transitioning to another activity.
Yeah.
I thought that was especially for teens too. I mean,
Yeah.
because they're in their own little world, and your teen doesn't want to stop what they're doing, and they'll let you know that. So kind of joining in regardless of what the activity is, I think
Yeah. Yeah.
was one of the best advices you gave me.
I'm so glad. And, and you're thinking this mindful group, right? So just thinking about, it's not an always thing. Sometimes it gets real and we're like, hey, cut it out. We got to go.
Yeah.
But, I hear so much joy in this child of them wanting to like just grab life and just stay a little longer. And like how often we could just be like, you're so awesome. Like, I love that you love being here. I can't wait to come back with you. This is awesome. I'm so glad I have a child that loves the beach. Yes. Like, what is that like for you? And could you be like, oh, and like maybe the child's like, Mom, I have to go. And you're like, no, I want 5 more hours. Like, I don't want to go home. Like, could you just join in that for a moment? And again, this is not an always thing. Sometimes we have to just go, right? But just like, when was the last time you just celebrated that my child rocks, my child loves the beach, or my child loves playing with their friends? This is an awesome thing.
Yes.
And now they're in it. And so just that moment gives the ease, and they're like, "Ooh, I'm not trouble. I'm not bad for liking something." And now we can leave. We're still leaving. We're still going. And then that movement piece, like I always say, move, 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 move. You're not talking about how sad you are about moving and leaving the beach. You're walking while being sad and leaving the beach.
Yeah.
Move. Keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and answering some of these important questions in the group. I also want to let everybody know that Dr. Lori and I will be doing a support group starting this Sunday.
This Sunday, yes.
Yes, where it'll be more personal. You can ask questions. We'll have a focus. And really, it's just to have some advice and some support with whatever experience you're going through.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll experience it all together. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you all for your patience with this logging into Facebook Live. It's been such a pleasure, and keep these questions going. I'm so admiring, Susan, that you put this forum together. It's such a gift to these families.
Thank you. All right.
Well, have a great day.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, Dr. Lori.
Bye.